Thank you for your help. Please be a real mayor.
All right,
not just for the name. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good questions.
We're starting to move.
Again.
You're the MC, right?
Yep.
Here we are at Cleveland Public Square, across from the old stone church. We're getting ready to start our rally, Stop Evictions. News media has come, Channel 3 and Channel 5, and others will be coming.
People, listen up. Thank you for all the ladies and gentlemen here. We are here for a special reason, also an important reason. We are Cleveland. We are famous for lots of things, but we know for sure all the citizens here are getting troubles, have been in troubles. We have more and more people losing their footings because we have a society pushing people away, pushing people out of the systems, put them into the wrong systems, for example, the injustice system. So now, today, let's everybody hear our voices. Why can we stay in our apartments or houses? Especially we know we are under the pandemic. Everybody could be at stake. Why we have a system to put people out of their apartments, out of their homes, to be homeless? Here is one person telling us what we should know. Let's welcome Mr. Michael Foley. He was the executive director for our great precious organization, Cleveland Tenants Organization, and he has been on the legislation side to help people out. Let's hear him.
Thank you, Ms. Liu. Thank you. As Ms. Liu said, I was head of the Cleveland Tenants Organization for about 10 years, between 1999 and 2009. And but before that, I worked in the housing court, which is just located down in the Justice Center down here. And every day in Cleveland, we would have the housing court would have to process evictions. And we would have a crew of bailiffs who would go out to people's homes, and they would give them notice, hey, we're going to be coming out next week because your landlord has evicted you. And then they would come out a week later and they would evict them. And I would go out with them sometimes, just because I wanted to know how it all worked and what the processes were and what the issues were. And it was depressing, right? It was depressing because Clevelanders were being forced out of their houses, uprooted. They had anxiety. They some of them had other problems going in their life. They had mental health problems, and the system didn't deal with it well enough. Right? They had financial problems. They had mental health problems. They had family problems. They had problems not having transportation to get to potential jobs. So that's been in place in this city, in this state, and in this country. That process has been in place for years and years and years and years. We all know that, right? But when I became director of the Cleveland Tenants Organization, we decided, hey, we should at least have some folks dedicated at CTO who just think about people being evicted in the eviction process. And we developed a group who would every day would contact people and say, hey, make sure you know you're being evicted. There's these resources out here. But still, the process went on and on and on. And now we're in this situation, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And the strain and the uncertainty and the anxiety is not only doubled, it's tripled, it's quadrupled from when it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So it seems to me that the federal government right now should be doing everything in their possibility to minimize the anxiety, to minimize the stress on people who are just trying to get by every day, right? Who have problems with their own housing as it is, And we need to minimize that as much as possible because this compounds a whole bunch of already existing problems that a lot of families in this economy have. So I applaud the work everyone is doing today, and I just want to say, as someone who worked in this field pretty regularly for many, many years, the federal government really needs to step up and develop resources and policies to end evictions now. I'm not sure who's next. Can I say one other thing? So I now work at the county, and I want to tell you, while we're not perfect in every regard, I do know that we've got some really good folks who care about this stuff. So our Office of Homeless Services right now is working really hard on homelessness. We've got a Department of Health and Family Services that really works hard and cares about it. There are some really good public servants in this community who care and really want to work hard on this, but we need national policy to help us out.
Thank you very much. Mr. Foley just gave everybody the indication, and I have been right. As a homeless individual, I know our society has been producing homeless people, just like right now. Is that right?
Yeah, right.
That's wrong. We all know that. Because, repeat after me, housing is infrastructure. No housing, no peace.
No housing, no peace.
No housing, no peace.
No housing, no peace.
So, next one, we want to know, from people's perspective, for somebody already being homeless or at risk to be homeless, Mildred Dixon, she's a member in our community, especially Homeless Congress. She's coming to tell us how hard it is, how unnecessary it is for people to be homeless, and how wrong that is, correct?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Rental assistance reduces crowding, housing instability, and homelessness. The fundamental result of rental assistance is to help keep families in stable homes. Wait a minute,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Rental assistance reduces crowding, housing instability, and homelessness. The fundamental result of rental assistance is to keep families in stable homes. It reduces the amount of families living in overcrowded areas from 46 to 22%. This information source is from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities.org. From consumerfinance.gov, there are 4 reasons why landlords should take advantage of federal rental assistance. One is to help available help for landlords. They can apply for money to cover rent and utilities. Also, tenants may need landlords' help to apply. Most of the funded programs in the U.S. Treasury Department Rental Assistance Program consist of taking applications from landlords. 2, tenants are eligible, so are landlords. Large housing corporations are receiving money because their tenants are eligible. Individual landlords can get paid too. 3, rental assistance can cover up to 18 months back rent. Helping tenants who are behind in rent is more feasible than evicting them. 4, there's still time to apply and receive help under the American Rescue Plan. Only a small part of the $47 billion in funding has been allocated. However, many landlords are unaware of this option, or they think that tenants have to apply. During this pandemic, it's important for landlords to connect and share resources. More info can be found at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau website. More info is available at https://go.usa.gov/xfwnk. Also, if renters or landlords want to apply for help with rent, utility bills, and moving costs, they can go to this site for those programs. In Cleveland, Ohio, they can call this number, 1-800-569-4287, or they can find a housing counselor by inputting their zip code on Consumer Protection Financial Bureau website. I hope this can help somebody who's really in trouble, and we can get them into a stable house, or keep them from being evicted. Thank you.
Now you all know, being homeless is not something just because we are lazy. It's more than a full-time job. Everything you own, you lost. Everything you work for, you lost. How much trauma should people go through? So now, we also want to know from the people helping people to go through the homelessness. There's one gentleman here, James. He is a dedicated worker at one of our last shelters, Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, running this shelter on 2100 Lakeside Avenue. Let's hear it, how hard it is for shelter to try to keep people safe during this hard time. James.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, everyone, for turning out. Thanks for giving that information.
No, this is not the order.
So,
No, but I mean, are you calling?
can you hear me? All right, so we're here to call for an end to evictions. We're here to call for an interaction, an engagement from the folks in power, the folks who have the power to stop evictions.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I'm here as a frontline service provider. All right? I feel like I'm a canary in a coal mine. I'm here to sound the alarm. I'm here to increase a sense of urgency. Right? This is a beautiful fall day. I'm grateful for it. But we know the weather in Cleveland, Ohio, it's about to get cold. And when it gets cold out here, the issue of homelessness is even more urgent, right? Now, let's layer on top of that this ongoing pandemic, all right? Now, the main shelter at 2100 Lakeside, operated by Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, with the help of the Office of Homeless Services and our continuum of care partners, has done a magnificent job during this pandemic of providing shelter to folks at higher risk for COVID-19. All right?
Right.
Our infection rate in the shelter is 4.3%. That's less than half of the larger infection rate in the community. Right?
Right.
So we've done a wonderful job here. But the job is not done. And I'm here to tell you that we're at risk for losing all of the success that we have had if we don't put in place a process that prevents the massive upswing in evictions that we know is about to happen in the wake of the end of the moratorium for eviction. All right? The federal government, to speak to the federal government is appropriating $47 billion for emergency rental assistance funds. All right? A magnificent response. But to this point, It has failed. Why has it failed? Because only the smallest portion of the money has actually been distributed to the people at risk for homelessness. As of August, which was the last figure I could find, right? Only 11% of the money had been distributed. And it's even worse here in Cuyahoga County. Only 6.8% of the money appropriated for emergency rent relief had been spent here in the state of Ohio as of August. So I'm here to sound the alarm. I'm here to sound the alarm that the money that has been appropriated must be spent. It must be distributed. It must get to the people who need it. Whatever we need to do, whatever we need to do to make that happen, it has to be a public priority right now. Right now. And so I applaud all of you for coming out to support this issue. Because if we don't raise our voices about this, there will be people dying on the street in this city this winter. How do I know that? Because it has happened. It has happened here. Right? Now beyond that, our shelter response was deconcentration of shelter population. And to that end, we got a lot of people out of shelter. We've been in hotels. We provided incentives for people to get out of the shelter. We're still diverting people. People are not coming back because of the diversion help that we've been able to provide. We are thankful that we're able to do that. But we know, again, that if we don't step up now, as this weather is about to turn, with the end of the eviction moratorium, right? If we don't step up now, whatever success we had will be soon erased in a very tragic way. I thank you.
Yay. Thank you, James. Thank you, LAMM. Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, thank you for your effort to take care of our homeless guys. Now, I would like you to know there's another organization dedicated their resources helping other people already homeless on the street and now the people coming to the street, which is unnecessary and ridiculous. Director from Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, Christopher Nestrick. Welcome.
Beautiful people, friends. Thank you, Lou, so much. Thanks to the folks of the Homeless Congress that are here. It's an honor to stand with all of you today. The Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless is an organization that exists to eliminate the root causes of homelessness while loving our diverse community through advocacy, education, organizing, and street outreach services. I've been asked to come and specifically speak about the role of street outreach services. We have a street outreach worker here today, Stephanie. But today, you know, we know, I think I want to honor also a lot of the work that LMM has done over the life of the pandemic. You've stepped up in ways that few agencies have to serve the people that you're called to serve, so thank you. But the reality is there's also many people that sleep on the streets of Cleveland, sleep underneath bridges, down by the railroad tracks, and our work is to build relationships with them, to build housing processes. And what we've come to realize is that it's been really difficult to find housing for people today in the pandemic. Landlords don't want new tenants. Landlords continue to practice discriminating policies to prevent them from accessing housing in so many ways that I think we'll talk about in the further on when my coworker Molly Martin comes up. But I want to say that in the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, we believe housing is a human right, and we believe that evictions are always wrong. There's no clearer way to make someone homeless in our community, to remove their housing from them, than to evict them. And what we've seen is that families continue to flow into our shelters because they are getting evicted. In fact, last week, our family shelter system was overflowing, and that they were denying families access to shelter because there was no place to place them. Evictions are one of the main reasons why families become homeless. 90% of those evictions are for non-payment of rent. It is absolutely ludicrous right now in our community, with the millions of dollars in rental assistance, that anyone should ever be evicted for non-payment of rent. We asked City Council to extend the moratorium locally. They came up with some other plans. We've intervened and asked the county council to extend the moratorium locally. They came up with other plans. But the reality is that we need interventions that will stop evictions immediately and permanently in our community. Our street outreach workers are seeing new people enter onto the streets every day. Families sleeping in cars, young adults sleeping in abandoned houses because they have been removed from their homes through evictions and are unable to get rapid access to housing in our community because affordability in this community does not exist. We spend billions on high-rises and luxury condos, while affordable housing becomes less and less accessible to people in our community. And if it is accessible, the question is it safe? And so I thank all of us for coming out today to really pinpoint one of the causes of homelessness. We know that NEOC will continue to do our work side by side with the Homeless Congress, taking their lead on these issues. And yeah, I just want to thank Lou for all the work that you did.
Talking about no affordable housing. This is the real national crisis. Don't blame homeless people. All the taxpayers' money going to the government. Have you been utilized that for people? Or you put that into something not helping people at all? Back in 2018, August 2nd, NEOC and Homeless Congress, we actually had a funeral for affordable housing. However, just like what Mr. Nestrick just told us, every time we tell the governments on different levels, we need help, they come up with something else. But guess what? We have LMM, we have NEOC. Now I would introduce you to another foot soldier in the community, helping people not to be homeless. That's Milo Gorman. He's here to chop bureaucrats' head.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you to everyone else here today. So yeah, my name is Milo, and I'm a steering committee member at the Cleveland chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. DSA is a national organization that is dedicated to building worker power and ensuring that basic human rights like housing are available to all of us, not controlled by a wealthy few. So we see the issues of housing justice and eviction as central to our project. We view eviction as a form of class violence committed by those who own property against those who do not. And so it's on all of us to build working class power to fight against that violence. So for the last year and a half, since spring of 2020, we've been working on our priority campaign, the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project, or CHOP, that is dedicated to building tenant power and fighting evictions. So the way that this works is we get lists from the court of every eviction filed in the city of Cleveland, and our volunteer canvassers go out every other Saturday to talk to tenants who are facing eviction, let them know what their rights are, let them know how they can attend their hearing, and encourage them to attend. As Mr. Foley talked about earlier, the housing court system is heavily stacked in favor of landlords. The landlord will almost always have an attorney, the tenant will almost always not. The landlord can afford to pay fees, can afford to pay filings, the landlord's lawyer's job is to be there, whereas the tenant cannot afford any of those things, will likely have to miss work, have to find childcare to get there. And when they do arrive, most of the time, as Chris said earlier, the cases for non-payment of rent, and there's not much the tenant can do to defend themselves. But if they do attend, they have a much higher chance if they do not. Most tenants, when they see the eviction notice, will simply think, well, I can't stay here anymore, I guess I'm screwed, I guess I gotta leave. But it is possible to fight back. For a while, the CDC moratorium gave tenants some measure of stability, but that is now gone. The only thing that we have to protect ourselves and our fellow tenants is each other. The government of the city, of the county, of the state, of the country is not built to serve our interests. It is built to serve the interests of those who own property, of those who have capital, those who control the economy.
That's not right.
And so and why is that? Why do they have so much power? It's not just that they have all the money, it's that they are organized, right? The landlords and real estate developers in almost every city in the country is the most powerful lobby in that city. Cleveland is no exception. But there are more of us than there are of them. But we are disorganized, we are scattered, we are not able to work together. The only way we can fight that is by acting as a collective block for power. So, I want to ask everyone here, everyone who sees this, to please join us in our efforts to reach out to tenants facing eviction, to in the short term help fight against eviction, but in the long term build tenant power together. So this Saturday at 1 p.m. we will be meeting in the NEOC parking lot. That's 3631 Perkins, that's the address, yep. 3631 Perkins at 1 p.m. We will then go out and talk to tenants all over the city of Cleveland facing eviction. So if you can't make it there this Saturday, you can go to dsacleveland.org and go to the calendar events to see future canvases. They're every other weekend. We need all of us there. The number of evictions has risen dramatically in recent weeks, recent months. Our canvassers, as of right now, are not sufficient to hit every door. We need all the help we can get. We hope to see you out there so we can fight this together.
Thank you, Milo. Milo just talked about a few different local efforts. So now here I want to thank Legal Aid Society of Greater Cleveland. They made an effort to put in a legislation, at least right now in the city of Cleveland. If you get eviction notice, you have the right to counsel. Repeat after me. Right to counsel. Right to counsel. Right to counsel. This particular legislation will help the family. I'm talking about the household with little children. You will have the right to have a counsel to come to the housing court to present your case. Just like we have a public defenders for criminal case. This is a big step. Sorry, Ohio has been in the Stone Age for a really long time. But if we don't make any effort, nothing will be improved. So, talking about the local effort from the community, there's another piece of legislation I would like to introduce to you, which is called Pay to Stay. Pay to Stay. Let's welcome Molly. Molly Martin will tell us all about it. Please spread the words. We will all get some help here.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you so much to Lou and to the Homeless Congress for organizing this, and to the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project for all the on-the-ground work that they're doing to build tenant power in Cleveland. You know, lately I've been thinking a lot about, the phrase, no justice, no peace. And I think when we think about housing justice in our community, we need to think about who the law is written for in this state. And under Ohio law, landlords have the right to evict a tenant for being just 1 day late on rent, even if they offer the payment. I want someone to go and find someone who's paying a mortgage and is a homeowner and see if you know anyone who's been late on their mortgage, even multiple times, and that they are going to be kicked out of their house for being late on their mortgage. Across the state, throughout the pandemic, there have been lots of cities that have been trying to combat the fact that that law is written for landlords and white property owners in this state. And they've done so by passing pay-to-stay legislation, which gives renters the right in eviction court to pay their rent late with the late fees in order to avoid an eviction judgment. Something that, I think is really promising and also discouraging is that in the state of Ohio, there's not a chance that something's going to get passed at the state level that's going to be pro-tenants' rights, and we need to do whatever we can at the municipal level to protect renters, which is why housing advocates across the city have been encouraging mayoral candidates Justin Bibb and Kevin Kelly to commit to passing pay-to-stay legislation on day one in office, because the legislation is ready to go. It's been passed in 6 municipalities in this county. It's been passed in 3 larger metro cities across the state. And also, source of income protections is something that the new mayor could pass on the first day in office. If you have a Section 8 voucher and you spend an hour just calling 20 different landlords, I bet 19 out of 20 of them will say we don't take housing vouchers or Section 8. How do we expect anyone to have access to opportunity or access to housing choice and dignity if we don't allow them to use the income that they have to live somewhere safe and affordable? We do have a call to action. Housing advocates are passing around a petition calling on Justin Bibb and Kevin Kelly to commit on day one in office to passing pay-to-stay, to passing source of income protections. It's legislation that's been passed, it's been vetted, and it's ready to go. And the only thing that's been lacking in the city is the political will to care about the 60% of people who are renters in Cleveland. And I also want to note too that our city and county passed a declaration declaring racism as a public health crisis, and I don't know how you can sit and not do anything about evictions if 80% of evictions in our city are single black moms.
Right.
So I do have a call to action. If you Google Renter Rights Day 1 Cleveland, there's a petition that you can sign on to. I know that the election is in a week and a half, but the work just begins after that to put on the pressure to our mayoral candidates and who's in the office to enact tenant protections and renter protections to address discrimination and to make sure that people have access to safe and affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, NEAC. NEAC has been at the forefront to help homeless people. Same thing. LMM has been answering the call to take care of people who they can take care of. But still, we cannot afford to have more and more people becoming homeless. Why? Because once you are into the homelessness, you are actually out of a job opportunity as well. However, if you are lucky, you get a voucher. You can get to a building, apartment building, accepting the voucher. Guess what? Another issue coming up. Since you lost your job to begin with, even voucher can help you to stay in an apartment. It may not be your utilities covered. Then what happens when you don't have the money to pay that utilities bill? Your utility bills definitely will trigger the shut off. Here we have another expert. He will tell us how ridiculous that is. How government looks at all these fundings but not helping people. Because we know for sure, people with a voucher, once there's no utility in your unit, your voucher actually becomes invalid. You are homeless again. Is that necessary? No. Is that right? No. So let's welcome Joseph Meisner. He will tell us all about that part. Utility shut off and homelessness.
I should begin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yay!
First of all, we got to thank Lou. She's the one that's done so much, along with others, to put this together today. And she's been one that's been fighting for all of us. So let's give her a nice hand for all that she's been doing. She's the one who also put together the handout I received on my email. Did you see the chants in there? How many of you saw the chants? One of them went, rental assistance, where's the money? Another one, utility assistance, where's the money? So, rental assistance, everybody, where's the money? Utility assistance, everyone, where's the money? I've been around in Cleveland several years, and It's 1942 when I was born. Somebody said 1842 the other day. It's really 1942. And I can remember the cold weather that we get here. You all remember the cold weather. 3 months from now, you know what it'll be like. And if you don't have a house or a place to stay, and you don't have utilities in Cleveland, that's death. You can go about 2 weeks without food, maybe 5 days without water, but how many nights can you put up with in our city? 1, if you don't have a house. 1, if you don't have utilities. So anyway, the federal government, the big granddaddy, grandmama in Washington, realized that help was needed. And how much money did they put aside for rental assistance? $50 billion. Most of you don't make that much. I don't make that much. But $50 billion was supposed to help with rental assistance. How much of that has gone out? Some of our past speakers have given that statistic. Up till about a month ago, only $5 billion had gone out, and a lot of the money here in Cleveland had not gone out. And even when we take this past month, when they're all scurrying around to get that money out, there's still some $40 billion. Where is that money? Where is that assistance? My view, and this is getting really crass, but my view is that somebody has got a bad case of constipation. The money is stuck up inside of them. And how do you get it out? What? All right. There are ways of getting it out. $40 billion, and it's being used right here in Cleveland. So here's what I'm asking. There are attorneys right now over in housing court. Who's the judge over there? Does anybody know her name? The judge? There's one judge over there. She's in charge. The first step, and I have 4 steps. The first step is that any attorney representing anybody over there and any tenant over there has the right to say, you can't evict me until you've checked on whether I'm eligible for the rental assistance. So that means that that judge can't say you're out until the judge, and I want her personally to see that everybody is checked to see if they're entitled to money. So that's number 1. Number 2, I am asking the attorneys in here in Cleveland, we got a bunch down at City Hall, all getting paid very well by your taxes. We have another bunch over at the county, again getting well paid. Why aren't they there in court protecting the people here in Cleveland? What do we need them for if they're not protecting us? Maybe they're the ones that should be evicted. So the second step I'm asking is that the city and the county have a special effort of sending their lawyers over to eviction court right in the beginning of the morning and making certain that nobody is evicted until that judge and that court has first of all looked into whether that family is eligible for assistance. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, we've got a governor down there in Columbus. He's been there long enough. That governor, Governor DeWine, should make certain that there are no evictions anywhere in Cleveland, no evictions anywhere in Ohio. So I'm not just talking about Cleveland. You have poor people living in East Cleveland, you have them living in Shaker, you have them living in other suburbs like Lakewood. No suburb, no city should be allowed to evict anybody unless they first check through the various programs. And Governor DeWine should watch how President Biden issues those executive orders. Why isn't Governor DeWine issuing some executive orders to protect people? So that's step number 3. Let's get the governor busy on this. And then 4th, what about the president? You know, Cleveland helped elect him, maybe not here in Ohio, but we did help elect him and other states. What has he done for all the tenants? He tried to put through the moratorium to last longer. Well, that's gone. So we don't have moratorium. But there's no reason why the president can't say, you've got to first check with me and with my administration to ensure that everybody gets that assistance. So those are the 4 steps. I'm calling on lawyers Lawyers, get busy. You serve the people. Even Lincoln knew that. We don't serve you. You serve us, and you serve everybody that's living in the city. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for all your efforts, and you're going to have to continue them. All right? And even though I know you were sitting, you had such beautiful words to tell us, we all got to get out there and make certain that we help all the homeowners, pardon me, all the home renters, and all the others that need our help this coming winter. Thank you very much. And we have our Vietnamese client, by the way. I've known Mrs. Deng for like 40 years. So I just want to say to her, Kama Neo Lam, Ba Deng. Thank you very much. We've got a lot of Vietnamese here in Cleveland, and a lot of them are renters, and they also need our help. So, come on. By the way, come on means thank you. Come on.
Thank you, thank you. Come on, Miss God. Thank you, Joseph. Now you know. Where is the money?
Where's the money?
Where is the money?
Where's the money?
Where's the money?
Rental assistance. We need rental assistance. Where is the money?
Where is the money?
We need assistance on utilities. Where is the money?
Where is the money?
Housing is infrastructure.
Housing is infrastructure.
Housing is all we need.
Housing is what we need.
We don't want to be homeless.
No homeless.
We don't want more homeless people.
We don't want more homeless people.
Because you discriminate us. You mistreat us. The next person would tell us all the wrong things we can see, especially from public policy's point of view. Let's welcome Daniel Ortiz from Policy Matters, Ohio.
Yay.
All right, thank you, Lou. And thank you all for being here. Thanks to all the organizers and partners for today's event. You know, I think it's been said, you know, we have federal programs with money to help address this crisis, but we need to use those dollars so we do not lose it. So I know this isn't an officially sanctioned chant, but we're gonna go with use it, don't lose it.
Use it, don't lose it.
All right. Now, at Policy Matters, we believe that no matter what you look like or where you're from, you have a right to dignity and a government that makes policy that looks out for you. And we all deserve that. You know, making sure that people have a safe place to sleep, utilities on, they get enough to eat, and they can keep paying their bills is good for everyone. And that makes sense to me. Now, when federal lawmakers passed the American Rescue Plan, it was so that we could take care of each other. It was to make sure that our neighbors recovered. It was to help us repay essential workers on the front lines of this crisis, and to make sure that we could rebuild our communities and begin to take steps to restore what was lost by the pandemic. Now, our recovery is nowhere near complete. There is some pending legislation that could also help give us an additional boost. Legislation like the Build Back Better plan would help us build on the investments of the American Rescue Plan. It would also help to fix and expand access to Ohio's unemployment compensation system. You know, these programs make a real difference, and support for these things should not be controversial. But the problem is some folks do not want to see us all recover. There are people who want to keep us divided. And a few well-connected and savvy politicians are willing to put profits over people. They're willing to exploit racism and fear for the benefit of a greedy few. Now, we saw this with the federal pandemic unemployment compensation benefits. The federal pandemic unemployment assistance was a lifeline to millions. You know, as much good as that federal unemployment programs did, Ohio's elected leaders opted out of the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program early. And they left money on the table. And we can change that. If we want a just recovery that helps people and connects us all to a shared civic process, we need to use every resource on the table. So I'm gonna say it again, use it, don't lose it.
Use it. Don't lose it.
So this is why using every cent of the emergency rental assistance program is so crucial. You know, with this program, the federal government gave states the money and let them lead. And, you know, we have to let our elected officials know that we're watching and we're done waiting. At the beginning of 2021, Ohio was distributing more emergency rental assistance funds than our neighbor states. But that's changed. You know, it was said that how we're using these states or these resources needs to be a priority. And currently, our neighbor states, Ohio's fallen to second to last in distributing these funds. We're behind Kentucky and just ahead of West Virginia. Now, across all of our cities, we know we could be doing a whole lot more. In order to use Ohio's current $564.8 million of emergency rental assistance, before the 2022 deadline, we need to distribute an average of $51 million each of the remaining 11 months, or we forfeit these dollars. So again, I say, use it, don't lose it.
Use it, don't lose it.
Now, the emergency rental assistance program is one part of, you know, the solution here. And it provides an unprecedented opportunity to prevent tens of thousands of households from unnecessary evictions over the next year. This program can help more Ohioans, so let's tell our leaders to act now. Make sure that you sign the Renters' Rights Day One petition. Let's continue to tell lawmakers to make sure our agencies use these funds so we do not leave any money on the table. We don't want to miss a chance to prevent evictions and shield households and families from harm, because eviction hurts all of us. Now, we have enough to recover from this health crisis, and we should try to do better than before. We can invest in all of us, but to do that, we need all of us. So I am very grateful for all of y'all for being here today, for taking that action, and together we can find a pathway to dignity and shared prosperity. Thank you.
Not only we should utilize the money, not to lose the money. Let's see how lacking our public policy actually is, which will put people into homelessness, not just because of the rent itself or the utilities money. There are all kinds of reasons today will put people in trouble. Let me introduce an expert on this, Ms. Ivanka Hall. She will let us know, in today's society, if the government only gave us some money at a time when we need it, it's not enough. Thank you. Let's welcome her.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but what I can say is that I want to thank you all for having me here. I want to thank you all for being here. I think that a lot of times, you know, in our communities, the things that are experienced by people who are marginalized go ignored. And so for us to be here, to be willing to stand up and talk about the issues that disproportionately impact communities, is so important, because we all need somebody to stand in for us in times we can't stand in for ourselves. And so this is Domestic Violence Month. And we know that people who experience domestic violence are more likely to be homeless, including women and families. So for me, for those of you who know my story, you know that in 1974, my mom was murdered in front of my cells and my younger brother. And I promised that I would use my life to help change the lives of others. And part of that domestic violence was moving from house to house, couch to couch, fleeing, trying to be able to find a place that was safe. For so many of our families that are marginalized and homeless, they just want a place that's safe. They want a place that they can lay their heads at night and feel like they're safe. And what happens is our community is so busy focused on profit that they fail to realize that we have so many people that are lacking basic safety mechanisms in our community. We should never be denying people the right to housing. ever, ever. We have, right now, with the pandemic, we have skyscrapers to the world that are vacant. We could right now change everything about homelessness if we had the will to. We have so many people that are at home in offices that aren't going back to a regular office. And offices are sitting here. We should never have to say, what's our winter weather plan for people in Cleveland? What's going to happen when the weather doesn't look like today? And we know that in Cleveland, it may not look like today in 5 minutes. We should never have families or children that have to worry about where they're going to lay their heads at night, or if their mom or their dad are going to be able to pay the rent, or if the mortgage is late, are they going to have a place to stay? These are basic things that most people don't worry about. But when you're marginalized and making small amounts of money, or for some people no money, because of disability or because of mental illness, it's so hard for you to get the basics. So what I'm asking is for our city and our county leaders to step up. We have ARPA money. We have housing money. We have money that we can use to change people's lives. But those people aren't the Q deal. Those people aren't Sharon Williams. Those people are you and I. Those people are people who are every day just struggling to make it. We're not the people that are important to the politicians in Cleveland. So we have to make sure that they understand that you and I are important and should be important because we are the people who elect the people.
Yes! Power to the people!
So we have to make sure that as a group, as a whole, that we're looking out for marginalized people, that we're speaking out and speaking up about the issues that are impacting people every single day. My mom didn't ask to have to float from house to house. At the time when she was living, there was no domestic violence center. We didn't have a lot of the shelters that we have now. Those things didn't exist. So we have those things. Are they funded the way they should be? No. No. So we have money that is supposed to be used. The ARPA money isn't just supposed to be used for their Port Belly project. The ARPA money should be used to help the community. The ARPA money was set aside to address the issues that came along with COVID. So we have those monies. We have housing money that were set aside because people were impacted by homelessness because of COVID. And so it's up to us to make sure that the housing, the Bill of Rights, that we make sure that we get those things into the hands of legislators that are willing to stand with us and make sure that when it comes to wintertime, that we're not worried about what is the plan for people who are left homeless in the street. Because we're going to make sure that there is a plan from now on. That's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that people are treated fairly in a city that is supposed to be a world-class city. We're a green city on a blue lake. Let's make it that way for all of the communities that live here, not just some.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hall, she's the executive director of the Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition. Listen to her words. It's about people. Repeat after me. People the power.
People's power.
We have the money.
We have the money.
We need to use it, don't lose it.
We need to use them. Don't lose it.
Now, while the weather is nice, let's hear Pearl Ching from Sunrise Movement and RTF. Let her give us the sunshine to brighten up our day.
Hi everyone, my name is Pearl Chen, and like Lou said, I'm here representing Sunrise Movement Cleveland and IRTF, as well as Utilities for All. I'd like to talk first about some of the ways that people most at risk for evictions face so many obstacles to stabilizing their situations. So a big issue that we have faced throughout the pandemic was the city's lack of support for people most at risk financially, including people who are behind on their utility bills. At the beginning, the city issued a moratorium on utility shutoffs for both Cleveland Water and Cleveland Public Power. And just to be clear, this is separate from the federal CDC eviction moratorium. So this moratorium on shutoffs was the baseline requirement from our public officials during a global health crisis. The focus of advocacy groups like Utilities for All was in notifying residents when the moratorium was issued, since the city wasn't reaching out to people already shut off to say they could get their services back. However, once December hit, the city lifted this moratorium right before the first bad storm of the year. And in February, we saw the tragic yet predictable consequence of this, which was that 7 people in Cuyahoga County passed away from not having heat in their homes. It ain't right. We held a vigil to honor these people's lives and those of everyone who suffered due to lack of utilities this last year, and their senseless deaths that happened because our city decided to prioritize profit over people. So like Lou and Joe talked about, a water service disconnection amounts to a practical eviction. And the EPA says just as much, since the home may then be deemed uninhabitable. In Cleveland, we have seen homeowners or tenants losing their homes for an unpaid water bill as low as $300. Yeah. Obviously, this makes no sense. The NAACP has also found that most water liens that are placed on homes in Cuyahoga County are located in majority Black neighborhoods, especially in historically redlined parts of the city like East Cleveland and Huff. So as with so many social justice issues, we see this disproportionately impacting people who are the most vulnerable. And now I want to read a testimony that was submitted to IRTF from a longtime friend of our organization who is currently at risk of being evicted from their home. He says, I rent from Brookfield Properties, which has a policy of filing for eviction if you are more than 5 days late with rent. I fell behind by a few weeks last February, so I had to go to housing court. I told the magistrate that I had submitted CDC moratorium paperwork that morning. The building manager and attorney agreed to work something out with me because I'd already told the manager that my job hours were about to increase. Several days later, I got a notice from the magistrate saying that the Brookfield attorney asked him to disallow the CDC moratorium based on a judgment in another court. He said he was honoring the request out of an abundance of caution. I guess ignoring the Justice Department's recommendation is caution. Throwing people out of their homes is caution. Paperwork moved up the date for me to have to pay what was owed, or I would have to go. That all happened without me being notified or being given a chance to voice an objection. I was then approved for assistance through Cleveland Housing Network, still just one payment behind, but Brookfield would not allow another entity to pay my rent. They also refused to take the partial payment, which was well over half of what I owed. I borrowed the balance and squeaked through. They are now trying to evict me again. The management filed court papers on Tuesday. I had told the building manager last week that I'd have the money this week, and when I got paid at my new job, and sure enough, my paycheck was deposited the day she filed, hours too late. I was ready to pay my full rent Wednesday, but they won't accept it, without me also paying $300 in court costs, plus an $87 late fee. Right. I'm working on finding the money before my court date, which is to be determined. So this person would like to keep their identity confidential, but they want to share their story as a clear example of the nonsensical ways property owners will try to kick tenants out of their homes. It's also a clear example of what Molly was saying earlier, of how people are penalized for being behind on their payments, and the laws are written against the tenants. It's not even about getting money for the landlords at this point, because this person had the money. It's about enforcing archaic systems of power and hierarchy and punishing people just for being poor. So lastly, I want to let you all know about another action that is happening this Sunday, same place at Public Square, starting at 1 p.m. to demand better public transit funding. Tens of millions of people in the U.S. rely on public transit every day, and 60% of transit riders are people of color. And transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S., which contributes to health issues, especially for people living within the city. Yet over the last several decades, the federal investment in transportation has consistently neglected public transit. This is why Sunrise Cleveland has joined other Sunrise chapters in Ohio, as well as many of the organizations being represented here today, to win clean, reliable, and accessible public transit across the country. So again, on Sunday, October 24th, starting at Public Square at 1 p.m., there's going to be a rally and march where we will be demanding better public transit for all, but especially the most impacted people, like our neighbors who are unhoused and at risk for evictions. Thank you so much for listening, and let's work together to stop evictions now.
Lou is busy being interviewed.
What's that?
Lou is busy being interviewed, and I was to be the next person speaking anyway, so I'll just go ahead.
Larry Bresler. Yay.
My name is Larry Bresler. I'm with Organize Ohio and the End Poverty Now Coalition. And it was interesting as I'm listening to all the speakers. Molly was speaking at one point of how, in terms of getting statewide legislation's protection is not likely, and it's clearly the case. It was many years ago. I think Joe was involved, Gail was involved, where many of us went down to Columbus to pass a landlord-tenant law that at its time was very good, and the idea of passing something like that today is basically unheard of. And so I think it's important to recognize and to remember that you've heard, like as Chris Nestor talked earlier, that there's a right to housing. That isn't just some kind of a vacuous statement that's made by those of us who are advocates and those of us who are activists. It's enshrined. It's enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the United States signed and agreed to in 1948. And let me emphasize as I talk about this, that this isn't something we just kind of negligently signed on to. It was instituted and instigated originally by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and when they were putting it together, it was coordinated and overseen by Eleanor Roosevelt. And so when it was signed in 1948, it was signed, we agreed to it. And mostly when we think the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we think of such rights as the right to counsel, the right not to be tortured, etc. But within there's also economic and cultural rights. And one in particular that I want to mention is Article 25, which says, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being for himself and their family, including the right to clothing, and including the right to medical care, including the right to housing. And so we've signed the Declaration. We signed the rights. We have a right. We have a legitimate right that we signed to housing in the United States, and yet it's been ignored. It's been ignored ever since 1948, and it's 53 years later, and it's an outrage. It's an outrage that we still have homelessness when we have a right to housing. It's an outrage that at this time, when we're still in the midst of a pandemic and people are falling way behind in their rent, that we're not doing everything we can to make sure people stay in their homes. It's an outrage that we're not spending our ARPA funds to make sure that people can stay in their homes.
Right.
We can't let this happen. We've got to stand up. We've got to fight. We've got to let them know that we have a right to housing, and we're not going to take it anymore.
Right. All right, Larry. Beautiful.
I think I spelled this thing out.
Thank you, Mr. Bresler, the Executive Director of Organize Ohio. He's a dedicated teacher at Case Western Reserve University as well. Thank you for his wise words. And thank you for everybody coming to this event. I hope we can get the message out so everybody knows how important it is. We have to participate in the activity in our society. We have to stop the trend for homeless people to be produced more and more. Thank you for your participation.